Do you struggle in setting up your electronic buttons on your grinder for the right amount of dose? Hang about and I'll show you how not to waste a mountain of coffee. G'day, Luke here from Artistic Coffee. Today I want to shed light on something that I come across a lot in the industry, and it's all about your coffee grinder. How do you get that magic little button to give you the exact amount of coffee that you need in your group handle? So I'm going to take you through how to set up your grinder so you're not going to waste a lot of coffee, the tips and tricks to look out for when you're setting them up, and also the effects that can cause problems in the dose after you've set this up. And this is going to apply to any electronic grinder that has a button where you can allocate how long that's going to grind for. So today I'm using a MAZZER KONY, which is a good commercial grinder. This is going to be the same on any Mythos or Anthem or any other grinder out there that's commercial but also domestic as well. So today I just want to run through the equipment that I'm using for this demonstration. We have the MAZZER KONY. This is what we call the electronic version. Obviously it's the time-based buttons. It's got a little dosing pot, a set of chaos scales, and I've got a GIOTTO ROCKET Tipo V. And I'm just going to use this because if you're at home, it's going to be similar to what you're using, and obviously we can transpose that to a commercial environment if you need to. So I'm just going to talk about the KONY. We've got our hopper, slide which needs to be open. We have our grind collar here, and this is where we're going to make our adjustments from coarse to fine. There's also a little locking screw here. That is really important to make sure that it is locked down. Then we have our control panel on our grinder. And you can see on the top here, we have a single cup dosing button, the double cup dosing button, a manual button, a way to access our menu. This is just a shot counter telling us how many grinds this grinder has actually done. And then there's a plus and a minus, which allows us to access the menu. We also have our dosing chute. We have a rest down here to pop our group handle onto, and obviously you've got your main on and off button as well. Now with the grinder, we have the ability to set how long that is going to grind for, and that time is going to either give us more or less coffee in our group handle. So if I was to press this 1 cup button, the grinder is just going to indicate that it's in that mode, and it's going to run for a certain amount of time. The double cup, it's showing a 2 here, and you can see it's running for a lot longer time as well. And we have the ability to go in and change those. In the MAZZER range, it's a matter of pressing and holding the menu. It'll flash at us. We can select the single cup and increase or decrease time very easily. And to save it, you simply hold the menu button. It'll flash at you, and as soon as it comes back to the reading of how many coffees this grinder has made, it's ready to go again. So let me give you an example of what I've just talked about. I'm going to set this grinder up for a certain amount of time. We're going to weigh what it gives us on a coarse grind and a fine grind, because a lot of people get lost in this when they start changing the grind and the time at the same time. So a hot tip is only change one or the other. Don't go and do both. That's where you can really get lost. But how do you actually recover from this? The one consistent thing that we can always do is have the right amount of grind. We can do that by weighing. So for all these recipes moving forward, we're going to base it just on our standard recipe of 22.5 grams. If we continually to weigh that amount and make changes with the grinder, we're not going to get lost, because that's the one consistent thing that we know is going to fit into this basket. Now if you want to know about how to create the right brew recipe and if 22.5 grams is right for you, check out the other video online that Joel has done on how to develop a brew recipe. We'll leave a link in the comments below. So for this test, I've got the double cup button set at 7 seconds. So that's going to be a constant when I adjust the grind. Okay, so that's now locked in. So I'm going to see how much coffee I get on the 7 seconds with my fine grind. We've got 23.1 grams on a fine grind. I'm going to change it to coarse now. I do have to clear out some of that fine grind, and then we're going to see how much we get for 7 seconds while it's on the coarse setting. Again, I've got to clear this out. Let's see what we get on the coarse grind and 7 seconds. So we've got 24.7 grams of coarse coffee. So you can see for the coarse of the grind, we're getting more coffee when we use the same time as we do with our fine grind. So with that demonstration, you can see that the time on the button that you choose to set is 100% relative to whether you've got a coarse or a fine grind. So whenever in a time-based grinder you change your grind, you have to change the time. Otherwise, you're going to get more coffee if you go coarser, or you're going to get less coffee if you go finer. Now, how much time? That's relevant to your specific grinder. In something like this, we normally find about half a second is about 0.3 to 0.4 of a gram when it's down at espresso. That may help you try and get around an understanding on your particular grinder. So how do you get to the right grind setting that you want to achieve? Firstly, you need to know how much coffee you're going to put in your basket. We're going to use 22.5 grams in one of these large, deep baskets. Again, if you're not sure on the baskets, check out our other videos and you'll find out what basket suits you best. So with 22.5 grams being our constant volume, I'm going to leave this on our coarse setting. And we're going to see what happens when we do an extraction. So what I'm going to do is measure 22.5 grams and test the current grind that I have. And I'm doing this manually just to get my 22.5 grams. So I'm a little over. Right, it's my 22.5 grams. Get a sneak of my puck press. All tamped. Let's see if we're happy with that extraction. Coming out really fast. It's not kind of the extraction I'm after. It's very dribbly. We definitely want to slow this grind right down. So if we want to slow down our extraction, we have to slow down our grind. I've gone a fair way in that, probably about a good quarter turn, because I know I've got a long way to go to achieve the fineness that I'm after. So now I'm going to have to clear some of that coarse grind out of the grinder. And you can usually see what's happening when you do the manual button. It's just starting to clump a little bit there, so I know I'm getting close. So again, I want to get 22.5 grams. That's our constant weight that we're dealing with. so it's slowing down. It's definitely still a bit too fast. I'm going to go much finer again. Clear it out. This is half the old grind, half the new grind. And you can see that is really starting to clump nicely. So that's getting so fine that the static is bringing those finer particles closer together. So we're going to get our 22.5 grams. So we're nearly there. You can see that's a nice little mouse tail. We're getting far more crema. It is starting to expand and open up a little bit in the shot. We've managed to achieve a very close extraction that we're after with 3 simple grind changes. I've seen people use a whole kilo of coffee just to be able to get to this point. So from here, we can now really focus on your brew recipe in fine tuning how much finer you want to go. So I know I want to go a little bit finer, and I'm going to make that change now. And I'm going to have to clear out that old grind. So I'm going to assume that this is the coarseness and the fineness after all this is actually where I want it to be. So assuming this is the grind that I'm happy with, what I want to do is I've done that manually to get me the 22.5 seconds. I'm going to test it, and if I'm happy, I'll show you how to then allocate that time to the grinder. It's a lot richer, darker. For this example, I'm really happy with that. So how do we set the grinder up to give us our 22.5 grams? Well, it's quite easy. Get your dosing pot, pop it onto your rest, and start to dose what you think is the 22.5 grams you've been measuring in the past. But count how many seconds it's going to take. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to go 7.5 seconds there. And I got to 21.9. So if I went a little bit more, I got to 22.9. So the starting point for time is going to be 8 seconds. Now, if I access the menu, press our double cup button, it's set at 7 seconds from the test earlier. I'm going to bring that up to 8 seconds. Press and hold the menu again. Pop the lid back on. And let's see how close I can get with our double cup button now. So that's 25.1 grams. So 8 seconds is just a little bit too long. So again, I'll go in, push the menu button, double cup button. Going to bring that down to 7.7 seconds. Hold our menu. And give it another go. Okay, that's 23.4 grams. So I've got to come down a little bit. Now, the one thing you need to remember when you're weighing shots like this is the inconsistencies and the variables that grinders are going to give you. In a mazzer like this, there's a little chute down there that can hold about 1 gram of coffee in between grinds. If you clean that out, you would be short by maybe even 2 grams of coffee. So there are variables that we're working here with different grinders. So without considering the consistency and the variables of a grinder, we're going to get pretty close by taking off about another half a second off there. So the other variables that affect how much dose you end up with after you've pressed that button are things like the age of your bean. Is that bean the same as what you used before? If it's aged a bit more, it's going to be a bit more oily, and it's going to grind differently. So you're going to have to make adjustments there. The hopper chute has to be open 100%. If it's not, it's going to vary the grind that's coming through, because the fall rate and the pressure that's going to be in there is going to be different every time those blades turn. You want to have your hopper at least 1/3 full to help with that pressure as well, and to stop popcorning, which is where the beans are bouncing around if you don't have a full hopper. That is going to also vary how much is going to come out. If you run out of beans after pressing a time button, you're not going to be able to add more to it. So unfortunately, you're going to have to either discard that grind or use your manual button to catch up that weight. The cleanliness of your machine as well. Inside these dosing chambers, if they're not clean, they can build up, and that can retain a lot more grind as well. And same with the actual chute inside the grinder. So make sure you keep your grinders nice and clean, and that can help reduce the static as well. Now, the one thing that I always see happen with this particular grinder is this screw is up and it's not located into the little sleeve that locks and clamps that grind where you want it to be. It has to be all the way down and clamped so that when you turn it on, the motor doesn't clamp on a beam and make that grind change. So thanks for watching today, guys. I hope that's helped you understand how to get your time-based grinder set up correctly. If you've got a question, make sure you shoot us a comment below. Hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell, and you'll be notified when we put up the latest video. Thanks very much, guys. Have a great day.